So let's talk immigration. We got Dave Smith here. I'm not sure his co-host name. And after that, we're going to do Saagar Enjeti on the Lex Friedman show. Both are right wingers, both more the libertarian side. I'm pretty sure Saagar's kind of the libertarian side. But I know Dave Smith is, so we're going to let Dave Smith give his thoughts on immigration, and I'll give my thoughts on his thoughts. And my thoughts on immigration.
As me and you have both been pretty clear for many years at this point now, the immigration policy in this country is it's disgraceful and borderline suicidal. I mean, it's just been, particularly during the Biden years, but for many...
Borderline suicidal. What do you mean by that? I think it's slow. We could have more like border judges and whatnot and get the cases moved through faster.
Years before that, it is insane to have a country where the dominant cultural ideology is essentially one that condemns their own nation as essentially what we are is a history of slavery and segregation and racism and patriarchy and bigotry.
So the main cultural ideology condemns that? Because shouldn't we condemn slavery and that stuff? And plus, a huge part of the culture doesn't even want that stuff taught, right? They don't teach it in Florida. They don't teach, you're not allowed to teach white kids slavery now, I thought. Like, that isn't, I'm confused. Like, it's totally backwards as to what reality is.
Is essentially to have a country where the dominant cultural ideology is essentially one that condemns their own nation.
So you can't even say it.
Essentially what we are is a history of slavery and segregation and racism and patriarchy and bigotry. And Stokes racial...
Oh, so he said condemns their nation because of that. Now, the main ideology of this country doesn't condemn the nation because of that. Most people don't. Like everyone's saying, half the people voted for Trump, right? Like, they don't condemn the nation at all. That's MAGA, right? They want to make America great again. A few people, people voted for Kamala, yes, and I don't think they were condemning the country that I know of. And then a whole lot of people didn't even vote. But how is that the main ideology of who? He's... Right, just make stuff up. He's just saying words that don't make any sense. That's not the main ideology of our country.
Grievances. Meanwhile, you're bringing in 1 million legal immigrants a year. The vast disproportionate majority of them being, not white. So,
ooh, being not white, huh? So, what does that mean? Is not white bad? Like, are we supposed to be a melting pot? We should, I mean, to be honest, there shouldn't even really be white or black people anymore. We should have all mixed by now. We should have melted pot and then be like this non-racist country of kind of somewhat racially homogeneous people, but the people that move in should just be mixing too.
Essentially changing very drastically the cultural and racial makeup of the country.
One, I always thought they said race don't matter. So what does it matter if you change the racial makeup of the country? Two, cultures change as history goes. As the future moves forward, you find out new stuff and you do different things. Cultures do shift a bit. But then, if we're a melting pot, that should be part of our culture, that these people that come in with other cultures, they should be like teaching their languages at schools and stuff. They should be teaching like how to cook at schools and stuff. And then say you got like a Chinese family that moves into town, an Indian family that moves into town, and a Ecuadorian family that moves into town. Right now you got 3 different languages that can be taught at the school plus English, right? And the 3 different types of cuisine that can be taught in the area or whatever. And then nowadays you got all these fusion cuisines, right? So that's what America was supposed to be, they said, a melting pot. They're going to be not white. That's what he said, not white. Really?
All at the same time, you have woke progressives constantly trying to stoke racial and tribal flames. Then on
how is this possible?
The vast disproportionate majority of them being, not white.
Who is
essentially changing
stoking racial
cultural and racial makeup of the country?
You gotta be shitting me. These people,
progressives, constantly trying to stoke racial and tribal flames.
You are the one stoking racial. Oh my God! How did it? I don't know if he's stupid or if he's doing it on purpose. So the MAGA people that are sitting here mad about, oh, they're taking our jobs, they're coming into this country, and the racist people, you're the one feeding their flames. Are you serious? All these not white people coming in, changing our culture, changing the race of our country, and they're gonna say that liberals are worried about race. These people are crazy.
The cultural and racial makeup of the country, while at the same time you have woke progressives constantly trying to stoke racial and tribal flames. Then on top of that, you have a giant welfare state. This is totally like the people of the country have never gotten a say in this, never gotten a...
What does a giant welfare state have to do with the racial makeup of the country? And the people never having a say in it, they at least get to vote. But, wow. That's crazy. That's like Charlie Kirk talking about, if I see a black pilot, I'm gonna wonder if he's qualified. Why are people that aren't white? What does that mean? Are you saying that just because you're not white, you're bad? Like, are you not as good? Holy shit!
Vote in this. The property owners of the country are completely disenfranchised, and
the property owners are completely disenfranchised. The people with wealth, all the way disenfranchised. What about the young people 40 and under that ain't got no houses, 45 and under ain't got no property because they got priced out? You got Blackwater buying up all the property and whatnot. You worried about the people who got something. Worried about these people.
And on top of that, you have just hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants coming in every single year. We really have no idea exactly how many. There's no accounting for them. We don't know how many are here. There's an insane immigration system currently.
So we could try to account for them. There's just some jobs, get some people, pay them, go do some census work or whatever. But it's crazy. Like, I understand, like, our country was built on illegal immigration. That's what the U.S. is. I'm not saying that we should just let everybody run in here all at once. But I mean, to call other people illegal immigrants in the U.S., in a country that just runs around the world and bombs it and creates all these immigrants, not all of them, but quite a few of them, and also with our pollution and climate change, the way we do capitalism, we're creating climate immigrants and stuff. Like, we got islands going underwater and stuff. But he ain't worried about none of that. He's just worried about, oh my God, keeping America white.
It's of course, policy-wise, the primary reason why Donald Trump has been elected twice. But there is... So I've said for a while that I think it's crazy that the American people have no way of exercising any type of influence or control over this immigration system. And
we do. We can run for office. We can vote for people. We can call our city council. There's all kinds of things we can do.
But this is something different. I mean, when you're talking about the H-1B visas, again, granting that it's a total scam and it's totally sold as one thing and then used in a different way, and it is the system is pitted against the American people, and that's totally unfair, and it should be changed. But you are talking about like 80,000, I think, people.
Again, with the H-1B visa, they should be educating our people more. They should be actively trying to qualify our people for these jobs that they say are so high and hard or need smart people, like Steve Bannon was saying yesterday we covered.
A year come in?
Speaking of, Steve Bannon is on the right, and this guy's on the right. This guy's supposed to be a libertarian, right? And libertarians are normally more racially open, or whatever you would call it. Steve Bannon was the one sounding like a left-winger talking about making sure more black people and Latinos have jobs and stuff, and this dude wants to keep America racially and culturally white.
From this, it is kind of small peanuts in the larger immigration conversation. Just saying, like, just the numbers of it. And there's, at least when we're talking about like skilled immigrant labor, there's a much different debate that should be happening. That's a totally different thing than like just 100,000 migrants pouring into your country who are all going to be on welfare immediately. That is like a...
And that's a terrible stereotype. Again, these 100,000 migrants, no matter where they're from, most of them speak another language, right? So they could teach, if nothing else, their language at a school to young kids and up, right? They probably have kids, a lot of them. They go to the same school, whatever. That would help integrate them and help us as a country just get smarter and better. Like if so, you got all these thousands of immigrants, hundreds of thousands of immigrants, or 100,000 immigrants coming in every year. What's that going to be like? At least 10, if not like 30 different languages coming in. All of them teach different languages around and stuff, and then you teach coding in these languages and stuff. And then when you get to be grown and it's one world now. Everybody's speaking to everybody. The more languages you know, the more stuff you can do. And plus their culture, their food, all that stuff. Bring it in, teach it, and spread it around. Take the good stuff from it, and stuff will fall by the wayside some. You can't keep everything of everything, but marry our cultures. Make the melting pot. Melt it together.
A different conversation to have. And even for people like us who recognize that open borders are insane, that this current immigration system.
Again, I like how Trump wants to make Canada and Mexico part of the U.S. Go for it. Greenland, Cuba too. I think they said like the Dominican Republic, which would have to include Haiti, I would think. So yeah, the more the merrier. When I was growing up, we talked about world peace. The presidents talked about world peace. How are we going to have world peace if we ain't trying to all come together, right? It ain't got to be open borders. Let's spread our technology and our world and everything so that people don't just want to come here. Stop bombing them and give them food and technology, and people will make roads and beautiful homes where they're at that don't get bombed by us, and they can stay there more.
Is unsustainable and dangerous and, as I said, somewhat suicidal. You can still understand where
all this hyperbole.
I want in America where there can be a sane immigration system, and we don't have anything like this. And I'm even open to arguments, because I have heard some fairly persuasive ones, that we should essentially have very, very limited, even legal immigration at this point. That it should be super, super legal. We've taken in so many people that we kind of have to close for a while and allow for like a bit of a melting pot, and then
we'll see
what can happen in terms.
Allow for a bit of a melting pot. You just want to keep it white and the culture white. Now you want a melting pot, but you want a melting pot while there's not a whole bunch of other cultures in here, not a whole bunch of other colors in here, so you can maybe whiten out everybody and whiten out the culture. Jesus.
Deportations, but that's very messy and
deport
be very
the ones you don't want.
Logistically to
this
implement.
Dude, it's getting worse, man.
At least on large levels, but I can even get that argument. I can get all of that. But I would want to live in a world where we could have a sane immigration system, maybe even a very restrictive immigration system. But also, the American workers wouldn't be so insecure that they'd be real worried about foreigners coming and taking their jobs. That also, we would just be killing it so much that you'd be like, I'd like to see one of these guys from this third world.
So how would these workers be able to kill it? By getting a good education and learning the skills to kill it? And how do you do that? Through schools, right? But this guy don't want to pay taxes. He don't like taxes at all. If you don't, so how are they going to get these skills from the no school with no taxes?
Country even try to come take my job because I'm so skilled and I'm so competent. And so at least part of this conversation, like we could rail against the immigration stuff too, but then part of this conversation should be like, why have the American people also been so failed by this system that they're not in that position?
Because we have some of the worst schools in the world because rich people don't want to pay their taxes.
Not like in that position where they are just so competent and so good at their job, and we have such a positive and prosperous culture that we are just out competing the world at all of this stuff, because that should be, I think, what we strive for.
Man,
so here's how
I've never really agreed with Dave Smith on much. He's a far-right libertarian. And I watched an interview with him where he said one day that his main goal was to have it to where he could have a society where he could have a house with a yard so big that he couldn't see his neighbors and he could just sit on his porch all day and not have to see anybody. And I'm like, you have that right now. You're a rich dude. You can go buy a house with a yard big enough that you ain't got to see nobody and you can leave everybody alone. With ideas like that, those are the type of people that I think need to stop talking. Like, You're out here talking about you want to keep America white and the culture white. Like, dude, go somewhere with that. That is not okay. My mom's white. I'm half white. My dad's black. I'm part of the melting pot of America or the U.S. I mean, I'm not saying you got a melting pot it or not, whatever. But to be like the people in here, coming in here aren't white. I mean, you're just an asshole. Like you're just. I don't think there should be any room for that. That's that white nationalist. There should be no room for that type of stuff. And he calls himself a libertarian. I think I haven't watched him in a while, so he seems to have moved into the fascist side. But man, I really wasn't quite expecting that, so I'm a little bit shocked right now. But we're we're gonna go see what Saagar Enjeti has to say now. All right, from Dave Smith, essentially wanting to keep America white, to Saagar Enjeti. Look at Saagar's face. I like to think he just ate a lemon head or something. Let's see what Saagar Enjeti had. The biggest issue with U.S. immigration system.
One of the reasons Donald Trump won in 2024, of course, was because of the massive change to the immigration status quo. The truth is that it may actually be second to inflation in terms of the reason that Trump did win the presidency was because Joe Biden fundamentally changed the immigration status quo in this country. That was another thing about the Scots-Irish people and others that we need to understand is that when government machinery and elitism and liberalism appears to be more concerned about people who are coming here in a disorderly and illegal process and about their...
See, I like how he put that together, right? He said government, power, elitism, and liberalism. These are all right-wing things, right? Elitism is the moneyed, the rich. Government power, they like, it's normally a right-wing thing. Like they like to use the government to control things. And liberals, they like to say the left are liberals. The left are not liberals. Liberals are right-wingers. That's Malcolm X. Martin Luther King warned us about liberals, not because they're on the left, but because they're on the right.
rights and their ability to quote unquote pursue the American dream while the American dream is dying for the native born population. That is a huge reason why people are turning against mass immigration.
Right. The American dream is dying for the American people, and they say, as immigrants come in, we give them these cards or welfare. Like we actually give people who come in legally big loans to like open businesses and stuff. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that. I'm saying we should do more of that for our people. There's a certain amount of people in the U.S. There's a certain amount of stores needed per person. There's not enough stores, obviously, if there's hungry people or jobless people. There's a certain amount of everything needed per person, and just the more people that come, the more of the jobs we need to have, and just either the people, like the government, if the people aren't opening up businesses fast enough, the government should be opening them up, and then either just employing people or handing them to people that want to run them. There's a certain amount of things, like bicycles. There's a certain amount of bicycles per people. If there's not enough bicycles, just make more bicycles. There's food places, hamburger joints, whatever it is. There's a certain amount that you need per people. Just make sure there's that many amount per people, and the society will run.
Historically as well, my friend Raihan Salam wrote a book called Melting Pot or Civil War, and one of the most important parts about that book is the history of mass migration to the United States.
But a good, and I'm cutting it off a lot, melting pot or civil war. So you got the people like MAGA versus, the left or the liberals or whatever. If in the beginning we would have just melted, like just different races get together and their cultures get together, the languages, speak all the languages, every language that you know, speak it to your kids so that they could know several languages. It just would make for a better world instead of being like, no, I just want to speak American. You're in America, speak American. Like, what is the point of holding yourself off and being exceptional to the rest of the world and keeping them away from you? Let's bring everybody, can't bring everybody in all at once, right? But let's bring everybody into the whole thing, the whole planet. We're all one huge ball of stuff floating through the galaxy or whatever, man. Like, we need to be one people.
If we think about the transition from Scots-Irish America to the opening of America to the Irish and to mass European immigration, we
took it back just a tick.
From Scots-Irish America to the opening of America to the Irish and to mass European immigration, we what a lot of people don't realize is it caused a ton of problems. There were mass movements at that time, the Know-Nothings and others in the 1860s, who rose up against mass European migration. They were particularly concerned about Catholicism as the religion of a lot of the new immigrants. But really what it was.
So basically, it's just American tradition to hate the new people. Let's just stop hating the new people. Just accept them, melt them in.
Is about the changing of the American character by people who don't have the same traditions, values, and skills as the native-born population, and their understanding of what they're owed and their role in American society is very different from the way that people previously had. One of the most tumultuous periods of U.S. politics was actually during the resolution of the immigration question, where we had massive waves of foreign-born population come to the United States. We had them, integrated, luckily, actually, at the time, with the Industrial Revolution. So we actually did have jobs for them. One of the problems is that today in the United States, we have one of the highest levels of foreign-born population than ever before, actually since that time, in the early 1900s, but we have all of the same attendant problems. But even worse is we don't live in an industrial economy anymore. We live in a predominantly service-based economy that has long, moved past manufacturing. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't.
So have more service jobs, make more restaurants. Restaurant people, the servers love to go out to other restaurants once they get paid a little bit. Make more like healthcare jobs, right? At-home healthcare. Start paying coaches. That's a service job, right? Make more babysitters. Just start using service jobs and have more service jobs again. You could just have classes where you teach the language and the culture and how to cook, like the people that are coming in, the immigrants that are coming in. Teach their stuff too. Mix our cultures and teach them our culture.
Bring some of that back, but the truth is that manufacturing today is not what it was to work in a steel mill in 1875. I think we can all.
But you don't have to work in a steel mill.
Agree on that. And part of the problems with extremely high levels of foreign-born population, particularly unskilled, and the vast majority of the people who are coming here.
This dude just talks for a living. He just sits on a show and talks. He's gonna call other people unskilled.
And who are claiming asylum are doing so under fraudulent purposes. They're doing so because they are economic migrants, and they're abusing, asylum law to basically gain entrance to the United States.
So economic migrants. We have tariffs and taxes all over the world. We create economic migrants. We bomb, we overthrow, we coup. We create economic migrants. We need to stop doing that. We could go around the world spreading money, spreading education, knowledge, technology, food, forests, trees, plants, all kinds of stuff. But you call economic migrants flagrant or fraudulent.
Without going through a process of application or merit. And this has all of its traces back to 1965, where the Immigration Naturalization Act of 1965 really reversed and changed the status quo of immigration from the 1920s to 1960, which really shut down levels of immigration in the United States. In my opinion, it was one of the most important things that ever happened. And one of the reasons why is it forced and caused integration. It also forced, by slowing down the increase in the number of foreign-born population,
Why would less immigration force and cause integration? I would think more immigration with more people, more races would cause more integration.
redeveloped an American character and understanding that was more homogenous and was the ability for you and me to understand despite the difference in our background. If you accelerate and you continue this trend of the very high foreign-born, unskilled population.
So I'm going to start cutting around on this. There's a little bit of noise outside right now, so I'm going to try to get through this a little bit faster.
Part of the problem right now is I don't think a lot of people understand the immigration system. The immigration system in the United States, effectively, they call it family-based migration. I call it chain migration. Chain migration is a term which implies that, let's say you come over here and you get your green card, you can use sponsorship and others by gaming the quota system to get your cousin or whatever to be able to come.
So that's American tradition, right? It's about family. It's about who you know, not what you know. They were wanting to bring their family back when it was, from Europe mostly, right? It's family migration was like to keep your same people. That makes total sense.
The problem with that is, who is your cousin? Like, is he a plumber? Is he, is he a coder? That doesn't actually matter because he's your cousin, so he actually has preference. The way that it should work is it should be nobody cares if he's your cousin.
But the way that it really should work is everybody should get a good education. We should look like that's the whole thing of the left is we don't want equal outcomes. We want equal opportunities, right? Everybody should start out with a good food, right? Like as a baby, you need good nutrition, and then onto a good daycare, good preschool stuff, then on to good schools. Everybody needs the same stuff.
What does he do? What does she do? What is she going to bring to this country? All immigration in the United States, in my opinion, should be net positive without doing fake statistics about, they actually increased the GDP or whatever.
Well, you can make all immigration net positive if you work with each person. Like, again, each person should be able to speak their language at least a little bit. Like he was saying, they might not have a college degree and may not be totally literate. But most people can speak, right? And you could teach kids up to a certain level and then pass them on past that level and whatnot. But we can also help them learn the language the more people we have here.
It's like, we need a merit-based immigration system.
There's nothing merit-based in the U.S. Like, name one thing that is merit-based. Even sports is hardly merit-based. There is so much politics in sports, especially like at the lower high school levels and stuff. But even when you get to the NFL and the NBA, you still got to play politics.
Largest country in the world, and one of the only Western countries in the world that does not have a merit-based, points-based immigration system, like Australia and/or Canada. And I mean, I get it because a lot of people did come to this country under non-merit-based purposes, so they're really reluctant to let that go. But I do think that Biden, by changing the immigration status quo and by basically just allowing, tens of millions, potentially tens of millions, at the very least 12 million new entrants to come to the U.S. Under these pretenses of complete disorder and of no conduct, really broke a lot of people's understanding and even like mercy in that regard. And so that was obviously a massive part of Trump's victory.
Speaking of illegal immigration, what do you think about the border czar, Tom Homan?
Tom Homan is a very legit dude. Got to know him a little bit in Trump 1.0. He is an original,
gangster,
true believer on enforcing immigration law as it is. Now, notice how I just said it that's a politically correct way of saying mass deportation. And I will point out for my left-wing critics in that, he really believes in the ability, in the necessity of mass deportation, and he has the background to be able to carry that out. I will give some warnings, and this will apply to Doge too. Czar has no statutory or constitutional authority. Czar has as much authority as the president of the United States gives him. Donald Trump, I think it's fair to say, even his critics, or even the people who love him, could say he can be capricious at times. And he can strip you or not strip you or give you the ability to compel. So czar in and of itself is frankly a very flawed position in the White House, and it's one that I really wish we would move away from. I understand why we do it. It's basically to do a national security advisor, interagency convener to accomplish certain goals. That said, there is a person, Stephen Miller, who will be in the White House, the Deputy White House Chief of Staff, who has well-founded beliefs, experience in government, and rock-solid ideology on this, but I think would also give him the ability to work with Homan to pull that off. That said, the corollary to this, and frankly, this is the one I am the most mystified yet, is Kristi Noem as the Department of Homeland Security Secretary. So let me just lay this out for people, because people don't know what this is. Department of Homeland Security, 90% of the time the way you're going to interact with them is TSA. You don't think about it. But people don't know the Department of Homeland Security is one of the largest law enforcement, if maybe the largest law enforcement agency in the world. It's gigantic. You have extraordinary statutory power to be able to prove investigations. You have Border Patrol, ICE, TSA, CBP, all these. I think articulated a very coherent case for why we need much less high levels of immigration to the United States. And I am the son of people who immigrated to this country. But one of the favorite phrases I heard from this from a guy named Mark Krikorian, who's a Center for Immigration.
It's crazy how something will benefit people, and then they don't want it to benefit others. I'm a son of immigrants myself. Then you should understand, It's just weird to me how they do that.
Studies is we don't make immigration policy for the benefit of our grandparents. We make immigration policy for the benefit of our grandchildren. And that is.
And so, if you don't like how it is now, they didn't make immigration policy right. The grandparents didn't. They didn't do it right for us now. We need a more melting pot. We need, like, beating a dead horse, the same drum or whatever, man. Like, the education, the cultures, we need to melt it up. Like, get everybody in here, accept everybody, bring in some of whatever they bring and stuff, and just melt it up. Like, he's going to say, let's see what he says.
It is an extraordinary and good way to put it. And in fact, I would say it's a triumph of the American system that somebody whose family benefited from the immigration regime and was able to come here. My parents had PhDs, came here legally, applied, spent thousands of dollars through the process, can arrive at the conclusion that actually.
So then he had economic standing, right? Like the wealth gap and stuff. So just the wealthy get to come. Those who are the elite get to come.
We need to care about all of our fellow Americans.
And then if only the elite come, those Americans who are just normal people are going to be further and further left behind by those coming in too.
Citizens. I'm not talking about other Indians or, other whatever. I'm talking about all of us. I care about everybody who is here in this country. But fundamentally.
But why do you care about everybody who's here in this country and not everybody who is here on this planet?
That will mean that we are going to have to exclude some people from the U.S. And
let's do that.
Another thing that the open borders people don't ever really grapple with is that even within their own framework, it makes no sense. So, for example, a common left-wing talking point is that it's America's fault that El Salvador and Honduras and Central America is fucked up. And so because of that, we have a responsibility to take all those people in because it's our fault. Or Haiti, right? But if you think about it, America is responsible, and I'm just being honest, for destroying and ruining a lot of countries. They just don't benefit from the geographic ability to walk to the United States. So, if we're doing grievance politics, Iraqis have way more of a claim to be able to come here.
Oh, he's just
than
like,
anybody
okay.
From El Salvador who's talking about something that happened in 1982.
Holy moly.
Within its own logic, it doesn't make any sense. Even under the asylum process.
How does it not make sense? First and foremost, we need to say, hey, like from the left-wing standpoint, yes, we've ruined these countries. He's like, all right, so we're like, one, stop. We need to just stop. Two, all this money that we spend in ruining these countries, we can help build these countries. We can, one, just leave them alone, let them do their own thing. Or if we're going to spend money on countries, why not just help them out, give them schools, or just hand them cash and let them spend it rather than bombing them. Like, if you hand somebody cash, it's way better than dropping bombs on them. It's fucking crazy.
People don't even know this. You're literally able to claim asylum from domestic violence, okay? Imagine that. That is a local law enforcement and problem of people who are experiencing that in their home country. I know how cold-hearted this sounds, but maybe, honestly, it could be because I'm Indian. One of the things that whenever you visit India, and
then they talk about the left wants to play identity politics. That's all the right talks about is identity.
See a country with over 1 billion people, you're like, holy shit, this is crazy. And you understand both the sheer numbers of the...
So India, a country with over 1 billion people, he doesn't mention how they were a British colony up until not too long ago. I'm not exactly sure when they got out of British rule, but Britain put a caste system on them, or I don't even know if Britain did it, but they have a caste system where they have like different levels of people and you're born into your caste. Almost like Jim Crow or something like that, right? And so that's not how we have, and that's not what we should do. As we build people up, like, we should have certain amount of schools per certain amount of people. We should have a certain amount of restaurants, certain amount of gas stations, grocery stores, all that stuff per certain amount of people. Don't just have a caste system where Elon Musk and Donald Trump and Bill Gates and the elite get to have all their fun and stuff. Like, we're like the Hunger Games. It's insane. They like dance around on their yachts and stuff while we walk around people who are homeless, kind of in the middle, well, still closer to the homeless guy than the billionaire guy. But geez, it's like, you're gonna compare us to India. Oh, we don't want too many people because we'll be like them. Let's not have a caste system. Let's take care of all our people. Let's educate all our people. Let's treat all our people like they're people rather than having a caste system and treating people like they're on different levels.
The amount of people involved. And also, there is nothing in the world you could ever do to solve all problems for everybody. It's a very complex and dynamic problem. And it's really nice to be bleeding heart and to say, oh, well, we have responsibility to this and to all mankind and all that. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
But nobody said we're going to solve all problems for all people. We're going to solve as many problems as we can for as many people as we can. Nobody should be homeless. Nobody should be hungry. There's problems that we can solve for all people. There's 10 to 20 at least problems that we can solve for all people. Like water, we solved that problem, at least in the West, and the only reason it's not solved all over the world is because we just don't help everybody pipe out the world, and we hold back stuff, right? Patents and tariffs and taxes and stuff. Like, we don't have to do that. It's just it's like disingenuous, man.
We're the nation state. It doesn't work with a sovereign nation. We're the luckiest people in the history of the world to live here in this country, and
because we don't get bombed by America.
And protecting it requires really thinking about the fundamentals of immigration itself and not telling us stories. Like, there's a famous moment in the Trump White House where Jim Acosta, CNN White House correspondent, got into it with Stephen Miller, the current, who will be the current deputy chief. And he was like, what do you say, something along the lines, to people who say you're violating, that quote on the Statue of Liberty, like, give me you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry, all of that, the Emma Lazarus quote. And Stephen very logically was like, what level of immigration comports with the Emma Lazarus quote? Is it 200,000 people a year? Is it 300? Is it 1 million? Is it 1.5 million? And that's such a great way of putting it, because there is no limiting principle on Emma Lazarus quote. There is when you start talking.
So then why limit it?
Talking honestly, you're like, okay, we live in X, Y, and Z society with X, Y, and Z GDP. People who are coming here should be able to benefit for themselves and us, not rely on welfare, not be people who we have to take care of after.
Again, we just need more jobs. Like, a lot of these people speak a language. Just pay them to teach the language to our children. Cook, culture, all that stuff. Pay them to teach some of that stuff. But then, the more people, we need more auto shops, more anything that we're lacking. Just make more jobs. Like, it's so silly.
Because we have our own problems here right now. And who are the population, the types of people that we can study and look at who will be able to benefit? And based on that, yeah, immigration is great. But there are a lot of economic, legal, and societal reasons for why you definitely don't want the current level. But another thing is, even if we turn the switch and we still let in 1.5 million people a year under the chain family-based migration, I think it would be a colossal mistake, because it's not rooted in the idea that people who are coming to America are explicitly doing so at the benefit of America. It's doing so based on the familial connections of people who already gamed the immigration system to be able to come here. I have a lot of family in India.
Are you saying you gamed the immigration system?
And some of them are actually very talented and qualified. If they wanted to come here, I think they should be able to apply on their own merit, and that should have nothing to do with their familial status or the fact that I'm a U.S. citizen.
Okay, and so that's one thing, and that's now, but like I said before, the Europeans who started this, they wanted their family to come, right? They wanted to keep it kind of family. That's what the U.S. is about, keeping it the same, not changing a whole lot. But they brought all these black people and let people in, so they called it a melting pot. So now you got what you got, right? It's a melting pot, and we need to keep going with that, I think. So he's talking about people coming in that can't benefit the U.S. society. Again, I live in Hawaii, I say this all the time. I work with people who are here on the COFA Act, and that's from where we were bombing the Bikini Islands, practicing the atomic bomb on the Bikini Islands, and so now they're allowed to come over here in so many numbers or whatever. A lot of their parents, and this is true for a lot of immigrants, a lot of immigrant parents come over here just to work at any job and raise their kids so that their kids can have the American dream and their kids can get a better job and their kids can do well, be the doctor, the engineer, the whatnot. And so just because the person that's coming in with the child doesn't speak the best Spanish or English or whatever, like he was saying, doesn't mean that their family isn't going to be a net benefit for the U.S. And again, if we cared about people, we would educate them. It's not hard to Like, we got all this YouTube and stuff. You can have a school where you bring your phone and the guy or lady, teacher, whatever, just sits there and tells you what YouTube videos to go to, and you just educate yourself like that. It wouldn't even be like, but there's so many ways. Khan Academy. All kinds of ways to educate yourself, or not just educate yourself, but for the government to help educate the people. And that's what a government is supposed to be for, not necessarily educate the people, but to help the people. It's going to educate the people, feed the people, house the people, all that stuff. That's what a government's for, but I'm getting off on a tangent. If you don't know who he is, let me introduce you to Jacque Fresco.
When I was a young man growing up in New York City, I refused to pledge allegiance to the flag. Of course, I was sent to the principal's office, and he asked me, "Why don't you want to pledge allegiance? Everybody does." I said, "Everybody once believed the earth was flat, but that doesn't make it so."
Nope.
I explained that America owed everything it has to other cultures and other nations, and that I would rather pledge allegiance to the earth and everyone on it.
So that's the more left-wing view, right? Not necessarily open borders, but let's, like Trump said, let's include Canada, Mexico, Greenland, and the countries that we can close to us right now, and then just slowly or quickly, however it is, expand, not imperialistically, but communal-wise, through community, through technology, through food, through education. So this is how I think, more than closing the borders. Nothing like Dave Smith talking about the people coming in here aren't white. I don't care about that. Like, I'm pretty light-skinned, but it doesn't matter if I was light or dark. I have 2 kids by different moms. One mom is white, one mom is Asian, so both my kids are kind of light, but I mean, it wouldn't matter if they were darker. Like, I don't care. Like, the only thing I care is that they're healthy and stuff, right? So if the people come, like, I don't understand. Like, I kind of understand. I grew up in a racist place where people told me I was infecting their race, right? I was infecting, and they were mad at my mom because she married a black man and stuff. But I mean, we need to get over that. If you don't like that they're not white when they're coming in, sorry, man. Your opinions and stuff, you're the caveman. You need to go away. Like, people need to stop listening to people like Dave Smith. That's just insane. Like, but you know, who was after? Oh, Saagar after. So Saagar is more just like the capitalist, like money wise, like what are you worth? What are you worth? And to me, I think everybody's worth something, right? We can educate people. And like I said, the parents might not come in and do the biggest thing, but they're going to have kids, right? And they try to make their kid do the biggest thing. So we should do educational things for the kids, and then everybody in America should have a good education, and then we wouldn't have these problems. But until next time, keep your education up by looking at everything from across the spectrum.